Good day, everyone. My name is Noah Amo, and I am going to discuss with you an overview of the secondary educational system in Ghana. But before we get to the Ghanaian educational system, I would like to draw our attention briefly to the African continent and get some facts about this continent because that is where Ghana is located. And I think that knowing or talking about this briefly will help us to appreciate what we're going to discuss more about the educational system in Ghana. So to begin with, Africa is the second largest and second most populous continent after Asia, with a population of about 1.3 billion, according to the 2018 census. Africa is made up of 54 sovereign countries, and notable about this continent is the presence of most of the world's natural resources, including crude oil, gold, uranium, bauxite, diamond, coffee, tea, cocoa, cotton, aluminium, and just name it. Any resource that you can think of should be found on the African continent. So it's a continent so rich with natural resources. Let us draw our focus now to the western part of Africa, that is West Africa. One of the countries there is Ghana, obviously, but West Africa has these constituent countries, about 16 of them, being Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. So these are the sovereign countries that constitute the West African bloc and are shown in green in the picture. So there are so many things that are common about these West African countries, free trade and other issues. But what is of interest to us, and especially pertaining to this discussion, is the fact that a number of West African countries come together and write a common exams organized by the West African Examination Council, or WAEC as it's popularly known. And these countries that come under the umbrella of WAEC and take the common exams include Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the Gambia. So having discussed this, we would like to shift our focus to the country Ghana and appreciate a few facts about this nation. So Ghana was the first African country to gain independence in the year 1957 from the British. The population of Ghana was estimated in 2020 to be about 31.07 million. And like many other African countries, Ghana is also very rich in natural resources. It is estimated that there are about 23 different types of natural resources in Ghana alone, and these include timber, cocoa, gold, crude oil, diamond, manganese, bauxite, uranium, and many other natural resources which are present on the continent. Most of them can be found as well in Ghana. And again, Ghana is very much noted for its hospitality and kindness to all kinds of people, especially to strangers. And so if you had an intention of traveling to any African country, then perhaps Ghana would be one of the choicest places to be at. So having known briefly about the country under discussion, we want to consider the historical overview of the entire educational system in the country Ghana. And as I stated previously, in 1957, Ghana gained independence from the British. Before the British, there were the Portuguese and I think other Western countries that endeavored to colonize the then Gold Coast, now called Ghana. And so education during the pre-colonial era, that is before independence, was mainly to the mixed race children. And talking about mixed race, during that period, those children that the Westerners had with mainly the local people along the coastal areas. So those children were trained or educated basically to read and write, to help facilitate trade, and then, to propagate the Christian belief in the country. So that was during the pre-colonial era. But after the country gained its independence in 1957, Ghana adopted the British education system, and that was followed for about 30 years. So this system had a structure of 6, 4, 7, and 3. That is 6 years of primary education, 4 years of middle school education, 7 years of secondary. And out of these 7 years, the first 5 years were for the O levels, and the next 2 years was for the A levels. And after this secondary education period of 7 years was followed by the 3 years of university education. So the problem with this was that it took so many years for students to complete school, and the least number of years would range from 26 to 31 before a person who went through this educational system would graduate from the university. And based on this issue, which was a major problem, especially with regards to funding by the government, the new educational reform program was implemented in 1987, and that was about 30 years after the BES was implemented. And so the NERP reduced the secondary school, especially the senior secondary school level, by 4 years. So the NERP, or the new educational reform program of 1987, had the structure of 6, 4, 4, 3. That is 6 years of primary education, 3 years of junior secondary school, 3 years of senior secondary school, and then 4 years of university education. And then following that, 20 years later, there was a reform called the New Educational Structure of 2007. And that added a year to the senior secondary school level. And not only was this change seen in the year added, or being cosmetic, but it came with a change in the name from senior secondary school and junior secondary school to senior high school and junior high school. So the new educational structure of 2007 had the structure of 6-3-4-4. That is 6 years of primary education, 3 years of junior high school, 4 years of senior high school, and then 4 years of university education. So represented in picture form to enhance on our understanding, looking at the last bit of the picture where it says normal age and in red, it can easily be realized that on the average, by the time a pupil or student completes senior secondary school, he or she should be between 18 and 19 years. And depending on the kind of tertiary education the student opts in for, which could be university, which could be polytechnics or teacher training or nursing training, depending on the type of tertiary education, it is expected that if a Ghanaian goes through the normal education process, then latest by 23 or 24, then the person or the student should have completed tertiary education. And this is so because university education is 4 years, but the others like polytechnics and teacher training and nursing training and other forms of trainings could run for 2, 3, or even 4 years. We want to now turn our focus to the secondary education in Ghana alone. Previously, we discussed about the entire educational structure, ranging from basic education or primary school all the way through tertiary. We now want to focus our attention on secondary education in Ghana, and especially on recent developments that came up in the country. So first of all, and notable among them is the Free Compulsory Universal Basic Education, or the FCUBE, which was implemented in 1996. And it is a very important aspect of Ghanaian education because prior to this period and after independence, the country was so much unstable with various coup d'etats and different forms of unrest and all that. So by 1996, the country was relatively stable, had adopted democracy as the only way of ruling the country, had entered the Fourth Republic, and things were much, stable at this point. And so this FCUBE was constitutionalized to provide free basic education. And when we talk about basic education, we're referring to primary and junior secondary schools, or junior high schools, as the name may have changed by now. These two names are used interchangeably in Ghana, either high school or secondary school. And the FCUBE was part of the accelerated development plan of the country after the country gained independence. The first president implemented this policy to help speed up the development in the country. And so it did not only cover education, there were other aspects, but these progresses were slowed down, as I indicated earlier on, by coup d'etats and all forms of unrest in the country following independence. So by 1996, FCUBE was constitutionalized and was part of this accelerated development plan. The FCUBE solved a major challenge to households that could not afford to take their wards through basic education, because at the basic level, that is primary through junior high school or junior secondary school, children will not pay anything, and they'll just go to school, be provided with exercise books and all forms of materials that would help them go through the educational process successfully. Following that, the free feeding policy was also implemented somewhere around 2000. And so these pupils were again provided with one hot meal a day during school hours. So through primary school to junior high school was basically free for all government schools, not private schools, but all government schools under the FCUBE. All students, all pupils enjoyed free education under this policy. And the implementation of FCUBE helped more students to gain access to basic education because it eliminated the impediment of financial difficulties that would have been on parents, and that being an excuse for them not to take their wards to school. Notwithstanding the problem, there was still a lingering problem, and this problem was that finance being a main challenge for the acquisition of secondary education, chances for successful completion at the secondary level became narrower for many. So what this means was at the primary and junior high school level, or the basic education level, children had free education. They could attend schools, do everything they wanted without any charge or minimum charges. But after that, they could not progress to the next step of the senior secondary school because the financial difficulties and all the impediments stepped in again. So the United Nations report in 2019 stated in part as follows, that many students, referring to students in sub-Saharan Africa, are not fully prepared to participate in highly complex global economy. The gap should provide the incentive for policymakers to refocus their efforts to ensure that the quality of education is improved and that more people of all ages can access it. And so in response to the UN's Sustainable Development Goal for 2030, of which states in part that ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, I believe that based on this, the government of Ghana rolled out the free SHS policy, or the free senior high school policy. So Duflo et al. In 2017 found that students who obtained scholarships were more likely to complete secondary school. That is, Ghanaian students who obtained scholarships were more likely to complete secondary school. And these students obtained higher grades in reading and maths texts. They demonstrated more preventative health behaviors and reduced occurrences of teenage pregnancies in female beneficiaries. The scholarships also indicated positive earning prospects to students after completion. And so this indicates that the actual problem was that if financial assistances were made available to students, then they would go to school, they would have higher attainments, and with a majority of the population being able to attain senior high school education, or that is what most are able to attain, then that would mean that they would have better prospects to finding jobs after completion of school. Again, Ajayi in 2014 also found that of all the students who sat for the Basic Education Certificate Examination, the BECE, which is equivalent to GCSE in the United Kingdom, 20% were unable to sit for the West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examination, or the WASSCE, which is equivalent to the A-levels in the United Kingdom, for successful completion of SHS education due to financial difficulties. And so the main issue and the main impediment in the Ghanaian educational system in order to enhance accessibility, as indicated by these reports, showed that finances or financial difficulties were the real impediment for most parents and most wards to take their children to school, to the extent that 20% would not be able to progress to the senior secondary school after completing basic education. Also, several studies have indicated that secondary education is arguably the most critical stage of education in Ghana. And these studies point out two indicators. First of all, that secondary education has the ability to transform the lives of the youth for further education and the job market. And again, it is the level of education a higher percentage of the populace ever attain. So with the based on these facts that most do not progress beyond secondary education, having a majority of the populace attaining secondary education would be more beneficial to the country than it would be for them to only have students, majority of them attaining basic education. So as already pointed out, funding had been a major challenge to secondary education in Ghana until 2017. Prior to 2017, previous governments made efforts to subsidize secondary education through the National COCOBO Scholarship, merit-based scholarships for secondary schools, hardship scholarships, senior high school subsidy, and the progressively free education or PFE government funding. And the problem with this PFE funding was that it stratified between the citizens in the northern part of Ghana who benefited more than those in the south. In Ghana, it is generally considered that those who live in the north are not economically affluent compared to those in the south, because most of the companies, the factories, the businesses, and all the setups are in the south. And so economic activities in the north are minimal. And that is why the implementers of this policy saw it that it will be more beneficial for them to start the progress from the north and then through the south. So before the free SHS policy, there was no comprehensive and universal free education at the secondary level. And at any point in time, a student had to pay for one thing or another. And so the free education policy was implemented, and then it was found that there is a wide consensus that the free SHS policy has positively impacted the finances and livelihoods of indigent parents and households in Ghana, because the free SHS policy eliminated all forms of costs, including feeding, textbooks, accommodation, and any cost that was associated with secondary school attainment. One notable evidence of this positive influence to both society and parents is an increase in enrollment. This demonstrates that in future, higher literacy rates will be recorded among the populace. After the policy's implementation, the enrollment into senior secondary school numbered 361,371 in the 2017-2018 academic year, compared to 308,799 in the 2016-2017 academic year. The increment by 52,972, representing 14.6%, was, as explained by Ofe in 2018, as a result of the implementation of the free SHS policy. And I put just these 2 academic years in perspective, because previously it was found that 20% would not be able to have obtained their secondary school education. But just a year after its implementation, we saw a rise of 14.6% in this number, meaning that less than 6% could not make it through to the secondary school level for various reasons, which could be they could not pass their exams or for any other reasons. But this was a very clear indication that the policy had a good impact on the Ghanaian society right from the first year of its implementation, with the rising numbers in subsequent years. The relevance of the free SHS policy to the ordinary Ghanaian cannot be undermined. However, like previous policies, the free SHS policy has also considered only accessibility by way of increasing enrollment and the alleviation of financial burdens to parents and wards as its definition of quality education. To ensure national economic growth in a country such as Ghana, it is expedient that majority of the populace attain at least secondary education. So since independence, the major issue with regards to quality has been its definition that quality only has to do with accessibility to education, and not really much about other factors that contribute to quality. But at this point, it is still relevant that focus is given to accessibility, because it is important that a majority of the populace year after year are able to attain secondary education, notwithstanding, and as indicated here, the free SHS policy has not come uncriticized. So many critics feel that it should go beyond just accessibility to enhancing the quality or the type of education being delivered, as opposed to just pushing pupils through to the secondary level without infrastructure, without teachers and the right forms of teacher training and engagement of other stakeholders who will come in to make quality education really of the standard expected. And so we would conclude this discussion about the overview of the secondary educational system in Ghana by bearing in mind that since the country gained independence in 1957, significant progress has been made, especially to focus on the quantity of pupils and students who can access education, which at this point is still a very key indicator as a step in the right direction. And then again, it's important to focus on the numbers because higher percentage of Ghanaians can only attain a minimum of secondary education based on this free education policy or the free senior high school policy, which eliminates all forms of cost to parents and wards who would want their children to attain secondary education. But as indicated previously, and in this summation, we realized that the free senior high school policy has not come uncriticized, and there is a need to get more infrastructural developments in place because the numbers keep increasing the year after year. And so since 2017 till now, there would be need for more infrastructural development in the various secondary schools, the various senior high schools to be in place in order to accommodate the students and to enhance on the quality of teaching in these senior high schools. And also a need to focus on quality to meet rising demand of high school admissions, as already indicated, that it is not just about the numbers, but to really improve on how the delivery of quality education with regards to teacher training, engaging other stakeholders and having more buildings and more computers and any other things that come in to make education really of good quality as expected at the global level. And so that is the end of the presentation. And I thank you so much for your audience. I believe these references can further help you with further reading on the topic. So thank you. And then that is the end of this presentation.